Hello, my name's Kate Mason and I am part of Community Services Speak Out. We're a group of welfare workers who joined together to start advocating for the vulnerable clients we were working for due to effects that we were seeing from lockdowns and mandatory and coerced vaccinations. So today here with me, I have Cindy. Cindy was a disability support worker. So thank you for coming along and talking to me.
Thanks, Kate.
So how many years were you working as a disability support worker?
I started in the industry over 30 years ago as an 18-year-old. I started in the industry and worked for a little while then in a residential facility. Then stopped that. I had worked other jobs for a little bit, had my own children, and then went back into it. And then I've been in this recent job for 24 years. I was in that job.
Wow.
With the one company.
And what brought you into the sector?
Purely by coincidence, back when I was a teenager, my brother had done some work at the school, something through the school, some kind of voluntary thing, and just said to me, I think you'd love it. So I rang them wanting to volunteer myself, and they said, no, we're not taking volunteers, but you can have a job. So yeah, I got a job and I did that for a while, and yeah, I loved it. And then yeah, I think other more permanent work came up. I think just something, some other job opportunity came up, which I took. Then I said, got out of that, had children. And then I think it was a neighbour of mine was volunteering with this company, same thing again, said, I think you'd love it. You should, my kids are young. Just for something to do, just for, giving back, just to do something. I went and volunteered, and I volunteered with the company for about 5 months. Pretty much I ended up, there most days actually in the end. And then that led directly into a job and was there ever since. So stayed after that.
And sounds like you really enjoyed the sector, the work, the people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Can you explain to people what a disability support worker does?
It's varied. My main position was always community access, so that was pretty much just out and about doing whatever, it was gym, walks, anything out in the community, appointments, that kind of thing, anything, just joining group activities, wherever it may be. Just, all sorts of social events, sports programs, anything that was going on in the community that the clients are involved in. It also involved SILS work, which is the supported accommodation work. So I did a bit of that as well, where they're, obviously in their own house, and that's more, your day-to-day living skills, cooking, cleaning, that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much. But most of my career was community access, just about every day.
And how many hours a week would you work with a specific client?
Most days would be, so it changed with COVID. We always had one-on-one support, and so an average day would be about 6 or 7 hours. Group days, when you had a group, we would have a group of ratio of 1 to 4. When players came in, it went to 1 to 3. Those days could be a little bit longer, but yeah, nothing more than an 8-hour day normally.
But you'd build a close relationship with the clients, would you? Because
very close. Yeah. So 2 of the clients that I worked with, I'd worked with them the entire time. Most of the clients in the service I'd known since they'd left high school, and they come, they would come from special school straight to us when they were 17 or 18, and they're in their 40s now, and they're still there. And the work, obviously varied. So, rosters change, shifts change. So you would work with different people regularly. Things would get changed a lot. But there was a certain couple of clients that I worked with consistently, throughout that whole time. So yeah, there was.
Can you explain? Do you think the relationship between the worker and the client, in terms of that long-term relationship, is it valued within the sector? Is it acknowledged that that's a really important component of the work?
It doesn't seem to be. No, not anymore. I mean, it is by the families. Yeah, absolutely by the families.
Yeah,
not so much by the service anymore. It's it's seen too much as a very transient kind of industry now. It's got a high turnover. A lot of that is by choice, from workers. They get into the industry and work out it's not for them, or something happens and they leave. But I don't think it's valued as it should be. Not by the companies, not by the services. I don't think they see the importance in having those kind of relationships and building that rapport and building that trust. And that's what it takes to, often get somewhere with somebody, having that trust and their trust in you to have some positive outcomes and achieve some things in their lives. I said I believe it's seen by the families, but not so much the service or the industry itself. Yeah.
And can you just speak a little bit to that? Just pull that out a little bit about what the relationship, why it's important, how that actually affects. I mean, it goes without saying, but in our current time, things are seen as more mechanistic or something rather than actual human, the value of human relationships and that can develop in a person so in this case with a person with disability, how can they flourish more if they trust and build a long-term relationship with their carer or their
well, I mean, I can give you an example. There was a lady that I worked with, again, autistic, didn't like change, didn't like anything new. And it probably took me, no word of lie, about 10 solid years of work.
Wow.
It honestly took about 10 years. And that would just be, just very, very gently each week, kind of just pushing her out of her boundaries a little, just trying to try new things, trying to go new places, trying different things that, she would often be reluctant to do. But after that 10 years, and I would get behaviours along the way and so forth that, you would deal with as it came up. But, just building that rapport, building that relationship, building that trust and just working on those things, we got to a point where she could go anywhere. She could pretty much do anything, without behaviours. Her world, as far as I, saw it, kind of opened up more. It was kind of very one-laned before, she would only go to certain places and do certain things, whereas, after all that time, she could pretty much go anywhere and do anything and enjoy her day, and that's what it's all about. So, not everyone, takes that long to achieve something, but it can often, and that's where it's quite difficult, and that's where you see the issues in the sector is, you'll have somebody working with someone and have that rapport and that trust, and then that worker will get, ripped off that shift and throw in another one and start again. And so those behaviours will start again. Those, it's a vicious circle, and that's what I'm saying. I don't think services realise the importance of consistency. Consistency is a big thing. I mean, I know people come and go and that's life, but if it's unavoidable, if it's avoidable, consistency is a good thing,
What in the sector are you starting to see? How are people with disabilities that you're working with or that you knew about, how are they being affected by lockdowns or mandatory and coerced vaccinations?
Lockdowns obviously had a huge impact on all of the clients, because it just obviously stopped them doing everything, all their day-to-day things. They couldn't go bowling, they couldn't go to the library, they couldn't go anywhere. We couldn't sit in the park. You couldn't stop. It was absolutely crazy because we were jammed in a house together. Yet if you were to go outside and go walking, you couldn't stop in a park to eat your lunch. It was nuts. So it was very difficult, and obviously they didn't have didn't have a good understanding of why they couldn't continue with their dance group or their choir group or their wherever they were going before. So there was a lot of challenges there. Obviously, you just couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't go to shopping centres. You couldn't fill in the day how you normally would. So we had to do things very differently. Then what were the other good, the mandates? Yeah, it's obviously had a huge impact on families, because that there's a lot of families that have again put a lot of trust in workers. We've had many families over the years that they only want particular workers. They've got trust in 3 or 4 workers, and that's that's what they want, and that was taken away from them because there was obviously quite a few staff that lost their jobs because of the mandates, and again that was just a choice that they had taken away from them. That worker was all of a sudden gone, and I believe it's caused quite a few behaviours from what I've heard, the feedback that I've been given. It's upset families, it's upset the client themselves, and it's had a huge impact.
And when you were talking about upset, it's really deep, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. And that can lead to all sorts of behaviours. So behaviours at home, behaviours in the community. You throw a new worker at a client who's got some challenging behaviours, and they've never worked with that client before. I mean, it takes a lot of stuff. There was never time for handover. There was never time for passing on any, because I've always said, as long as I've worked in the industry, you can only read so much in someone's file or someone's profile. So much of what you need to know about somebody is passed on and just learned, or just by talking to the families and getting all those little nitty-gritty day-to-day things of likes, dislikes, and triggers, and and so when there's no handover and you're not passing on that information, and some of it's extremely vital. There's things in people's day-to-day lives that can trigger them into having massive meltdowns and huge behaviours, and quite violent behaviours, and it is a big thing. So if you've got no experience, if you're literally thrown into a shift, you've got not a clue what's going on. I mean, it can be potentially dangerous to workers, the client themselves, the community.
And it's also part of your sector, as it is with all welfare sectors, but I think it is really spelt out, isn't it, that people with disabilities have a right to make choices about their own lives. That's actually one of the real things that you're working towards, that there's some sense of autonomy. And
I don't, and I don't, obviously a lot of our clients are with their families, so that's a family choice. When it came to vaccinations, I really don't know. I still didn't really find out how it came about, where it came to clients getting vaccinated who didn't have that family backup. So, the ones that were in supported accommodation who don't have family, who are, just living within a service, it's kind of, to me, it was just like a rounded up with sheep and off they went to get vaccinated without, they would not have had the full understanding whatsoever about what was happening to them. So I think there was complete coercion there.
And I'm also talking about choice in terms of who works with them. That they potentially might have wanted workers to stay on who are unvaccinated.
They definitely did, and I heard that directly from families. And I've had this argument right from the start that it went both ways, because there was a lot of families who, like you said, would have actually preferred a non-vaccinated worker to be working with their loved one, but they didn't get that choice, because if their loved one was within that service, if they were at that service 5 days a week, they didn't have a choice, because basically that was the way it was. If you were working within a service, you had to be vaccinated. So that family, it goes both ways. They didn't have a choice of workers either. And there was definitely families who would have preferred a worker not to be vaccinated. But again, that choice was taken away from them as well.
Do you know the reasoning behind that? What reasons?
A lot of them was, absolutely. A lot of them were families who blamed their child's disability on a vaccine injury back when they were a child. So absolutely very strong feelings on those issues. So yes, a lot of the people that I'm thinking of and talking about are the ones who believe that their their loved ones were vaccine injured.
Okay.
Yeah. So they would obviously those clients were not vaccinated, and and they didn't need to be. That was the other issue within the service that I kind of struggled with that the staff had to be, but the clients didn't need to be. So I thought that was quite levels for that, but I thought that was an interesting scenario.
Yeah. So with the lead up in your workplace and the mandatory vaccination policy being introduced, can you talk to a little bit about that and that process?
The process was it was quite sudden, really. It was, I think, more just hearing what was happening in other states and pretty much just sitting back waiting for it to happen. I think we kind of thought we got away with it here for a while because there was a lot of states that were way ahead of us. And then bang, all of a sudden it was brought in by our government. And so it came as quite a shock. There wasn't a lot of notice. It was literally kind of in the media, and then bang, it was, emails coming through from work that we had a certain date and deadline to meet. It was very varied within the workplace. There was a lot of people who'd already volunteered and been voluntarily vaccinated way back, and that was obviously, their choice. Very happy to be vaccinated. And there was a lot of staff who literally just did it to keep their jobs. There was many workers who I spoke to who, if they'd had a choice, they would not have got it done. And that was a lot. Yeah, that was a lot. And then there was the ones of us who chose not to and lost our jobs. But yeah.
How many in your organisational area that you were aware of, if you just think percentage wise?
Of not being vaccinated?
Yeah.
I don't know, to be honest, because we were kind of spread into different areas. Yeah. We had different, hubs all around. Around the city, and housing was different to community access. So we had different areas. So to be honest, I don't know within my workplace. I mean, there was probably at least half a dozen of us, I think, that left. But then I said it's a lot bigger service that I'm not really sure. I think the company quoted 3%. But I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. And then so you were fired, or what were you?
Yeah, I was fired. I was fired, and my separation certificate, or whatever you like to call it, was stating that I had what I'm looking for. I was accused of serious misconduct, is what I was accused of in my separation certificate. So yes, I was fired.
And you recently, can you explain what's happened since then with that?
Yes, I've recently sought action through the union that I'm a part of to get that changed, to get the status of serious misconduct, because I really struggle with that, having that label and being accused of that when I, especially when I just did a simple Google search of what that entails. I thought that was completely uncalled for, and I found that really upsetting.
What does it stand for? What's the definition?
If you Google serious misconduct, it includes things, like theft, fraud, sexual misconduct, a whole range of things, which I, from somebody who came from a career of no disciplinary action. I had no, I'd never been in trouble for anything. I'd never had any, first and final warnings, or I'd never been disciplined for anything. I found that really upsetting, really offensive, really, I really took that. I really took that hard to be accused of that. I mean, I just, bottom line, a choice that I made for myself, medical choice, personal choice, whatever you want to call it, was then being thrown back at me as serious misconduct. I thought that was just wrong.
So you got
very wrong. So I've been able to get that changed, thankfully. Yes, through the union, they've managed to get that changed to me resigning. So a resignation
Mm.
Resignation showing on my record rather than serious misconduct.
So how has all this affected you, Cindy, all this, the whole process?
Hugely. It's, I had no intentions of going anywhere. I thought this was it. I was quite comfortable in my job and was happy to keep going for, probably until retirement. I was, I literally worked 5 minutes from home. It was, I had a great bunch of people that I worked with, the clients I loved, the job I loved. So I took it really hard. I took it really, really hard. It was a massive thing for me to lose my job. I've really, really struggled mentally. I've been struggling with lots of anger, with everything that's happened. Lots of anxiety for the future as to what's going to happen. How am I going to support myself? What's going to happen in general with my career and financially. It's had a huge impact. It's been really difficult, really difficult.
Yeah. Did you want to talk about your personal reasons for not vaccinating, or you'd like to?
I've been vaccinated against other things in the past. I didn't have, any great strong opinions about that. My kids were vaccinated, and I'm just one of the lucky ones who didn't. I never had any issues with vaccination, so it wasn't a vaccination thing as such. I didn't trust right from the beginning a vaccination rollout that was still in its trial phases. That didn't sit well with me at all. At all. I thought that sounded extremely dangerous and extremely scary. Not having any long-term trials, not having any long-term data on anything. That didn't sit well with me. I just didn't like the idea of any of it. So I sat back and I just thought, I'll just wait and see what happens. I'll see what happens. And I've also got a heart condition that I've had for 25 years that I can manage. It's not nice, but it doesn't affect my day-to-day life. And it doesn't cause me any great deal of issues. But when I started hearing about all the myocarditis, pericarditis, heart kind of issues, I just that confirmed for me that I just wasn't willing to take that risk. What happens to my heart when it does play up is scary enough. So I just, and then I think I just learned more and more about things, read more things, understood a lot more, and saw a lot of adverse reactions within, people around me, people that I know personally, friends of friends, acquaintances, and so forth, and just started hearing more and more horror stories that just, confirmed my decision. So, yeah.
In your state, have they mandated boosters?
No, I don't think so yet. No, not yet. No, not that I've heard. I don't think not for our industry. I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm waiting, obviously,
Yeah, because it's been in other states. How do you feel about the sector now?
I don't know what would be a good word. Disillusioned. It concerns me. I've got genuine concerns about the whole sector moving forward with so much knowledge and experience, that has been lost. And the whole sector itself, I think had changed anyway, regardless. I think the whole industry, when NDIS came in, became more about dollars than people. So that, there was already a lot of workers who'd left and gone out and worked, for themselves and privately. And so I think it's a changing industry anyway. But yeah, certainly I think COVID's and the vaccination things had a huge impact. It's still an industry and work that I love, but it's certainly changed.
You actually love the work with the client.
Yeah, absolutely.
With the clients or the people. And is there anything you would say? Have you got any thoughts, the things that you'd like to say to anyone that was still in the sector that might be feeling a bit uncomfortable with where everything's heading?
I don't know really what I would say to them apart from, speak up and question things, but, and advocate for the people that you work with, advocate for them. And, it's just, you're dealing with people's lives, these are people's lives. And some of these people, like I said, don't have families around anymore. So, if you've had somebody that you're working with long term, you're probably that person who knows the most about them. You're probably that person who has got the most background knowledge, whether it be medically, just their past history. I don't know where I'm going with that, but just remember that these are people's lives. You've got some valuable knowledge that, can have a huge impact on these, these people's lives moving forward. That information needs to be passed on, and
the necessity, as you talked about, advocacy, to be a voice, or to if you see something that concerns you, that's what I'm hearing you say. If you're seeing something that concerns you or worries you, speak up and talk for that person as much as you can.
Because they will fall through the cracks, and they will fall through the whole system. Obviously there's people that are non-verbal, there's people that are, have limited vocabulary, and that, you again throw, if it's a constant industry of turnover, you're never going to get anyone who knows that person well, and anything that was important in their life, whether it's, like I said, be medical information or any kind of past history stuff, it's just going to be lost. It's going to be completely lost. And a lot of that stuff, like I said, doesn't get written down. It doesn't get put in someone's file. It's just important general knowledge that should be handed over and passed on, and it's just not happening.
And you make a good point, which for some people some people wouldn't have, who don't have families, the workers actually might be the most intimate relationships they have, people who know them the most. If they don't have a partner and they don't have family and children, or close friends, then it's the worker, isn't it?
It's the worker. And and I've seen it time and time again, obviously, so being there the amount of time that I have, that even in their day-to-day life and doing what I did in the community access sector, that's got a huge turnover. But if that person then lives in a supported accommodation house with a different service, for example, it's the same thing in that house. The staff turnover is often huge, whether it be, just in the industry itself, like just people coming and going from the industry, or people being passed around within that service to different houses. And you've got someone constantly different in their life, so in their home life and then in their day-to-day, living. There's no one consistent, and there's no one who's kind of sticks around long enough to get to know that person. Or, you might start building a bit of rapport with another staff member and being able to pass information on and knowledge on, and then next minute they're gone. They're gone, and they might have just moved to a different house, moved to a different service or whatever, but all of a sudden, they're gone. Or you might have passed information on and that was valuable, and again, they're gone. So,
And you have to wonder if, when they made these decisions about mandating for the vaccines for the sector, for the workers, if they took any of that into account, and the actual real effect of what that would have. On disabilities.
Well, I heard yesterday someone was telling me, when we had a little bit of a discussion about this whole thing in the industry, that that apparently, and I don't know if they meant NDIS in general, or I'm not really sure where this survey was or who it was aimed at, but they said that a survey was done and a majority of families wanted workers in the industry to be vaccinated. So, you know, again, I'm not sure where this survey, you know, was and who it was and where it went to, but
that's pretty much how the whole industry's gotten away with mandating is surveying. But the other part of that is that we were under extensive education and information that only said one thing, that, and we had our health ministers and our premiers, etc., stand up and say anyone who's unvaccinated is unsafe. So of course, when you go and ask people, they're going to repeat that. It was hammered into us.
Absolutely. So that fear was absolutely hammered into everyone.
Yeah, so that of course the surveys are going to reflect that. Originally, it might be interesting to see what those surveys would say now.
That's right, exactly. Yeah, whether they still had those same, those same wishes. Whether, I mean, the people that I've spoken to now, it's really not an issue. They don't really care whether they had a vaccinated worker or not. It doesn't. It's of no importance. The importance is to have that quality of support and quality of care, and that's the most important thing, which up to me completely outweighs any vaccination status. But,
yeah. Anything that we've missed that you wanted to say?
I don't think so. I think it's just the thing that I said a few times just concerns me the most, that loss of knowledge, that loss of information, things that you build up over the years. It's just it's gone, and that's if I'm just one person, in one service, one area, that's I'm sure happens everywhere. And there's a lot of knowledge, a lot of, and a lot of relationships that have been lost, and a lot of trust that has been lost, and rapport, and I believe it would have had a massive effect. A lot of people.
On a very strained industry anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an industry that's constantly battling with staff shortages, and it's a huge issue on a day-to-day basis anyway, even pre-COVID. So I really don't know how. I don't really know how it's working now.
Yeah,
I've certainly heard of whole services just closing their doors because either everyone's got COVID, everyone's isolating, and again, what happens to those clients then? I don't know where they are or who's supporting them, but it's certainly had a massive impact.
Well, they've definitely lost someone with you, Cindy, and it's incredibly sad. You can see how much I've known you for a while now, and your care, and ethics, high standard of ethics, and your actual very genuine care for the people that you work with has always been really evident. So thank you for, all the work you've done and keeping on trying to raise these concerns so people can become more aware, and the powers that be become more aware of what this looks like in real life, rather than sitting around talking about this in an office space. So thank you. And
thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks, Kate. Bye.